How come you're not a banking Nepo kid?
I remember Cyrus Sahukar told me that, Puri, this is like you've peaked with your first film. This is going to be hard.
We are kind of like this tissue paper generation, the 30s, because we are neither 20-year-olds and we are neither 40-year-olds. We don't realize that while we are growing older, our parents are growing older too.
There's no guarantee that once you've frozen your eggs, you'll definitely have a baby.
Whoever wants to have children, please have children. Whoever doesn't want to have children, don't have children. A girl who's not married in the 30s means too late to get married.
The biological clock, unfortunately, is real.
30 and thriving. Hi, my name is Kyra Dutt and welcome to 30 and Thriving, a safe space for honest conversations and expert advice. And today we have with us a very special guest, a dear friend, and also someone I happen to love and admire.
Oh.
You've seen her on the silver screen, from Aisha to Edinburgh. We'll come to that soon. It's none other than the amazing Amrita Puri.
Hi.
Welcome to 30 and Thriving, Amrita. How are you doing?
Good. This is my first podcast, so I'm excited.
You know what? You're actually my first guest too, and this is my first podcast as well. So we are podcast virgins.
Yay.
Yay. So I remember the first time I met you. It was at an all-girls retreat in Goa.
Oh, yeah.
Do you remember that?
Yeah.
It was a really, really fun retreat, actually. I still remember because it was all girls. There was, around 10, 15 of us?
10, I think.
10 of us for sure. And we had this whole day and night planned, and all over it was really lovely.
Yeah.
But I remember this one incident distinctly. You know, there was this one girl, I'm not going to take names, and she was just being very difficult with everyone. And I think you put her in her place.
I did?
You did, but you did it in such a lovely manner. And I looked at you at that time because I've already seen you in the screen, you know, and I didn't know you personally. And I thought, wow, you know, I want to be friends with this girl. Like, this is one person, I think she's cool. I think she's like, you know, somebody who just knows how to carry herself really well.
How
and I was like, you know,
sweet.
this is somebody I want to be friends with. And the first thing I noticed about that was, you know, your sense of boundaries. Are you somebody that, you know, naturally has boundaries in her life? Going through therapy for that.
I'm so happy you said that. In fact, I'm feeling very pleased about it.
It's a personal success.
Yes, because I was not good at it. And I have worked at it, and I have my therapist to thank for it.
Amazing.
And
you know,
myself, yeah.
Yeah, and I had a similar problem, and surprisingly, I've been going to my therapist too.
Yeah.
So that's a similar story we share. And she's been telling me the same thing, that I need to work more on my boundaries. And I think that's probably the reason why I found it such an attractive quality in you. And my next question to you was anyways going to ask you that, does it come naturally to you, or is it something that you've been working on, you know? So, but you said it, that it is something that you've been working on.
It is. There are some things which I'm very clear about. Like I'm not, and those things, there's no, you know, there's, even in my mind, there's no hesitation. But I think particular situations, I really needed to be more vocal about my feelings or establishing boundaries.
What about your childhood? Like, you know, growing up, you've started from a banking family.
Correct.
How come you're not a banking Nepo kid? Yeah, I really thought of this, by the way. I had home last night before I came for this shoot.
You are
because,
right.
you know, why is nepotism, the new favorite word, restricted to only films? A doctor's child wanting to be a doctor is also nepotism.
Nepo, you are absolutely right.
A banker's child wanting to be a banker is also nepotism. So how come you went against nepotism and wanted to do something on your own?
It's not something that interested me ever, and thank God, because I am not good with numbers. I'm terrible.
You're a right brain.
You know, this right brain, left brain thing is apparently a myth. But
oh, really?
Yeah, I don't know the details of it, but that's what I read.
I always think I'm a right brain. I'm definitely not a numbers person.
So I'm just not a numbers person, and I would have made a horrible banker, and I would have had to live under my father's shadow, and they would have been like, oh my God, look at this girl.
So nepotism problems are real problems.
So I'm very glad, because also my dad is a legend. So I'm so happy that I picked something completely different.
Was it difficult starting on your own, breaking from the family tradition, doing something in an industry? Were you like familiar with the industry when you got into it?
No.
Or you were just a complete outsider?
I was a complete outsider, total bhondu, I would say. And
I remember
was like-
Aisha.
Yeah.
Your first film. Are you trying to tell me that your character in Aisha was very similar to who you were as a person?
I mean, some of my friends who see it are like, oh my God, it's the same, that's you. And I'm like, I'm not someone who's lived in who's lived in, I've forgotten, Bahadurgarh, never left. But I guess the naivety.
The naivety, yes. I must say that I actually loved you more than Sonam Kapoor in that movie.
Thank you. It was a fantastic role. It was a really fab role.
Yeah.
And the lines that I got were absolutely amazing. The love that I get even today.
Yeah. I think people really remember you from Aisha.
They really do. And I didn't know at that time what a amazing... of course, I knew that it's an amazing opportunity, but I didn't realize just how amazing that role was. Because whatever I've done after that, people always go back and remember me for Aisha. And I was like,
that is true.
Iske baad agar main kuch nahi karti also, it would have been, people have been like, Aisha, I could have done anything else after that.
But do you think that's a positive, or do you think it's something that, bothers you because you feel like, you got the best role in the beginning of your career and then you never really matched up to it?
I feel like it was, sometimes I think, and I remember Cyrus Sahukar told me that, Puri, this is like you've peaked with your first film. This is going to be hard. So at that point, because I was a newbie, I was like, what is he saying? But now I get it, because it's a very male-dominated society and industry. Right?
Yeah.
So that was completely about women. We had we got to have the cake and eat it too, which does not happen often.
And especially that time. Because when Aisha released that time.
And it was just such an amazing character, and the lines were just so good that...
the songs were so lovely.
Opportunities like that don't come along easily. And it was the first of its kind, chick flick, fashion. It was very different. That character was also so endearing that I didn't realize just how amazing it was. And I was so nervous from start to finish, because it was the first time I was coming in front of a film camera. In the sense, I'd done ads before, but that was the extent of my experience.
Right. But you said that you peaked in your first film, but I think you've done some wonderful roles after that also, and many other films.
No, you're right. It would be really unfair to all those filmmakers or producers who've really given me wonderful opportunities, especially, things like Kai Poche, which were very big, which was very big, not very big, but Kai Poche was a huge hit. But I feel that in terms of what is most memorable and when people come up to me and they say, hey, aren't you that girl from... Most of the time
Aisha.
It is that girl from
the
Aisha,
girl.
There's other stuff also, but I'm remembered the most for Aisha. And it did annoy me initially, because I'm like, yaar, itna kuch kiya, or 15 saal baad they're still like, hey, aren't you that girl from Aisha? And I'm like, yes, it is me. It is me, correct. But now I've started seeing it from a positive angle, that 15 years later, people come up to me and they still remember my dialogues.
Yeah. Coming to something that you just mentioned in this conversation was that it's a patriarchal society, and that reflects in our cinema. I've been an actress too, and I have faced that as well. I feel like, actors, whether they are 50, whether they are like most of the top actors today are actually 50 plus, and they're still working with actresses half their age, and that is absolutely normal. But somehow a girl, when she crosses 30, means abhi to iska time ho gaya, abhi to isko, she'll get typecast, she'll start getting a certain kind of role.
Yeah.
Have you experienced that in the industry?
Yes, and yes. I'm someone who looks much younger than my chronological age. So it was just like, how do I look like I can have a 16-year-old child? And I'm not talking about now, I'm talking about maybe 6-7 years back,
Yeah.
And then it just automatically starts happening where they like, we have a fantastic role for you, and just pad lo ek baar script pad lo, kya character arc hai ye wo, and I'm like, hai kya? And they're like, supportive wife.
Wow.
And I'm just like, I can't. I mean, at some point, I just got very, very bored of
playing the supportive
yeah.
wife. Yeah, but the thing is that unfortunately, when you look at society,
Yeah.
in India especially,
Yeah.
we are still very prehistoric in our mindset where basically, men start looking attractive after a certain age because they become financially more independent. And women are looking for protectors and providers. On the other hand, a woman, when she starts aging, it's a general opinion, not in my opinion, but it's a general opinion that the woman's beauty starts deteriorating. So automatically you'll see guys who are in their 20s, girls don't like them too much.
No.
And they're always struggling to get girl attention. But the moment they start growing older, suddenly they start getting so much attention because now they're all like, financially stable and they've got something that they bring to the table and they become more attractive.
Yeah.
Women, on the other hand, when they're young and fresh and beautiful, everybody finds them desirable. Like even the 40-year-olds want the 20-year-olds,
Yes.
And we are kind of like this tissue paper generation, the 30s, because we are neither 20-year-olds and we are neither 40-year-olds. So we are beach ka, na idhar ka, na udhar ka. So I feel like this is the general consensus of our society, and cinema is nothing but a reflection of our society.
It is. It absolutely is.
And that is, I think, reflected too much in the movies and the cinema and everything else that we see. And, so I totally get what you're saying because, I've experienced it myself.
Yeah.
And how do you deal with it and what did you do about it?
What I did about it is that I started at some point saying, okay, it's not that some of the roles were not good, where I have played, the wife's role, and they were very interesting characters and they actually were very strong characters, like Prisoners of War, which was amazing with Nikhil Advani. But then at some, after 6 or 7 years of just doing that or mostly doing that, it starts getting boring and repetitive.
Yeah.
So what I decided is that what can I do from my end? Either you start producing or writing it, which I have not done, or that's not the route I went. I started saying no. And then I said, okay, I want to... I want to live an engaged, fulfilling life where I'm doing something that I'm busy with, but something that I'm passionate about and I find interesting.
Right.
And that's when I decided to go do my master's and do a postgraduate degree.
Go back to studies.
Yes, which is something I always wanted to do and I regretted not doing it,
Right.
So this was about 2 years ago. In 2022, actually, I went to Edinburgh. I went to University of Edinburgh and I did my MSc in Global Mental Health and Society.
Amazing. That is so cool. But it's not, it's not something that's unheard of. It's not something that people don't do, but it's rare. And especially someone, with the kind of attention you've got in your life, you're an actress, was it difficult to make this choice and this decision to kind of, step aside from the camera, go finish your master's? Because actresses don't usually do this. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'd like to say actors, but make it gender neutral.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Gender neutral, I don't think actors usually do this, but was it a very different choice for you to do this? And
it was hard. It was a hard decision to make because everyone's like, "Arey, agar tum chale jaoge, to they'll forget about you," which is
out
true.
Of sight, out of mind.
Out of mind. कि सब भूल जाएंगे and then वापस आना पड़ेगा. They'll think, "अरे वो चली गई है, कुछ नहीं कर रही है." Not कुछ नहीं कर रही है, पर वो नहीं कर रही है. Which
yeah, they always have this thing now that if you're not doing films, you're not doing anything at all in life.
Oh no. You're not acting anymore, So I was like, okay, do I want to do that? Because it is very much that you have to stay visible, you have to stay relevant to keep getting roles. There's a lot of competition. But at some point I said, okay, there's always a risk, especially when it comes to things with certain stakes,
Yeah.
And do I want to take this risk? And where will my life go if I don't take this? And where will my life go if I take this? And I just felt that it was... it would give me so many more opportunities, and I love learning.
There's no end to learning.
So, and life experiences are also important. It also contributes
Absolutely.
to what you bring with you on a set and in a role is your life experiences. So I decided, even though it was a hard decision and it wasn't easy because I don't have my undergraduate degree was very different. So what I had to do is I had to do online courses. So I did some courses with Harvard and I think I got like 12 credits because I didn't have the right qualifications in terms of my undergrad. It was not only doing a postgrad degree, but it was a shift.
What was your undergrad in? And you did your master's in...
in global mental health.
Global mental
and
health.
my undergrad was in English literature.
Oh.
And then post that, I did a 1-year diploma in social communication media, so mass media.
Mass media.
So then I had no a background when it came to global mental health. Though it's not a psychology degree, but it's an interdisciplinary degree. But psychology
Why did
is
you
one
choose
aspect.
such an uncommon subject?
It is a very uncommon subject. It
is.
only started in 2000s. Most of the time, I'm explaining to people कि ये है क्या?
kya?
You know?
Even I was a little confused, I'll be honest. Initially, I was thinking, is it global psychology or is it
Yeah.
global mental health? But then you clarified it to me.
It
you
is
know?
confusing.
It is.
मुझे भी नहीं पता था कि what am I going to
But
study?
why choose this subject?
So the reason is because so when I was looking at, okay, what else do I want to do apart from acting? And I just want to tell everybody, I am still acting. I'm
Yeah,
still an
that was
actor,
also my next
guys.
question. Ki if you're doing this now, it
Yeah.
doesn't mean you've left acting. You
Absolutely.
can do both in life.
Yes. Is that why do I have to just stay in one place and do only one thing? Who said? Kisne bola?
Exactly.
Show me this role book that said, "Arey, abhi aap ye nahi kar sakte."
Haan.
So I tell everyone, they're like, "Oh, now you stopped acting," and I'm like, "No. I will always be an actor, you know?
Yeah.
There's no, it's not like कि अभी बंद हो गया है and डाल दिया गोदाम में, that the talent, the interest. I'm acting and I'm now doing this. And when I say this, it's global mental health, which looks at mental health, but from a interdisciplinary angle. So you address mental health from a developmental angle, which is the what is society doing to contribute, or what are the detriments in society when it comes to mental health, culture. So you look at society, culture, economics, politics. They all have a role to play when it comes to mental well-being.
True.
Globally and then locally as well.
Yeah.
And the reason I chose this, and I didn't know it existed till I started doing the research, is that I didn't really want to be a counselor or a therapist. So I was looking at what are the other things that I can do
with mental health.
Yes. And I had started volunteering before I think 2 or 3 years before, in fact, before COVID, because I felt a need to give back, where I want to do something that's not just for myself, but give back to society in whatever way and in whatever capacity that I can. So I started volunteering.
Do you think there was a certain time that you felt that this need for a change, where you felt that, you want to give back to society?
I always wanted to. And as a kid, if you asked me, what do you want to do? I would say, I want to become an IPS officer. But I didn't know kitna padhai karna padta hai. So I dropped that when I
So you hated studies then, but now you've gone back to studying.
No, I didn't.
Wow.
I didn't hate studies ever.
Yeah.
It depends on what your interest is, But the amount you have to study for the IPS, no, that is not my
But I'm sure you're studying a lot with the masters as well.
So with that 1-year masters, yes, it was full ragada, but it was also in subjects that I found very interesting.
Yeah, and it's wonderful, that you said that you want to give back to society, because I feel like, it's such a wonderful thought. For me also personally, if I can speak from my own example, I feel a certain change came especially after my 30s. I don't know if it was the same for you or not.
Yeah.
That is why I asked you specifically this question, that, I also wanted to do this podcast because this was my way of giving back to the society.
Yeah.
Where I felt like people like you or any other person can come and speak about their story, and someone somewhere listening to it can be inspired by it. So this is kind of my small way of giving back to society.
Yeah.
But I think it's wonderful what you're doing, especially the subject that you chose. It's such an interesting subject. I don't know anything about it, but I'm finding it very interesting, And I think that mental health is such an important thing today.
Yeah.
And our country has so many other problems that mental health is probably the last of the list,
Yeah.
Especially when a certain strata of society is still struggling for basic wages.
Yeah.
Or even if there's a conflict-driven country, if there's war happening somewhere, the last thing people are thinking of going to a therapist, because they're like, how are we going to survive this?
Yeah.
So I feel like it's a very afterthought, but it's still so important, especially with everything that's going around in the world. I mean, what do you have to say about that? Do you have an opinion about these things?
You're absolutely right. In fact, I'm getting excited while I'm listening to you ask these questions, because the idea of mental health and well-being is very jaded, I feel.
Yeah.
Where people think of it as, they don't think of it as a part of everyday life. And for instance, what you said, if you look at conflict, if you look at war, just as you need to address basic needs when it comes to like water, health, sanitation, you also need to discuss, address mental health. In fact, when you have the Sustainable Developmental Goals, the SDGs that have been laid out, so that you have water and sanitation, you have food, you have security, and mental health is a part of that, except that we don't see it as a immediate, they're like, no, it's a need, it's not an immediate need, but it is.
It is.
Because just like take conflict, for instance, when you have refugees in a refugee camp, you not only have to deal with, food, shelter, security, but the trauma that they come in with. They come in with so much trauma.
I can only imagine what the next generation is going to be like, especially with everything that's happening around, especially what's happening in Palestine, I mean, it's just heartbreaking.
It is. It really is. And it does have an effect on globally. People are feeling the anxiety. They're feeling, sometimes, and the helplessness of you're sitting here. How much can you do? What can you do except for, social activism on Instagram?
But I think, it does make a difference, especially when there's many voices that come together. And in fact, if you look at it right now, I don't want to be sounding very political, but I think this is something that I would love to address because I very strongly feel about it. Even Netanyahu today is trying to buy off the social media. And there's a reason for it, because he's understanding the power of voices on social media. So I don't think anything that you put up on social media, or even if you're voicing against some injustice, I don't think it's going unheard today.
And I'm so glad that you brought it up, because it's so important. We need to talk about this.
We need to talk about this. We really need to talk about this. But, I want to keep the conversation light, and I want to get back to some fun stuff that you were doing in Edinburgh.
Okay.
I am dying to go to Edinburgh, by the way.
Okay.
It is such an exciting city, because do you also know that Edinburgh is the world's magical city?
What?
Yes.
Oh, because of Harry Potter.
Not just Harry Potter.
Then?
Harry Potter, yes, of course. A huge Harry Potter fan here.
Yeah.
But also the fact that there are ferry ponds and there are collective people who travel to Edinburgh. So
But there aren't ferry ponds in Edinburgh. They're in the Isle of Skye.
The Isle of Skye, but also Edinburgh. So I have a therapist as well, and she does Reiki healing, and she has this community, and they travel together and they go to Edinburgh for their regular meets, because apparently there's this huge community of people who follow and love magic, and maybe that's the reason why Harry Potter was shot there.
Oh, so there is.
Did you experience any of this?
So there aren't ferry ponds in Edinburgh or around. It's about 3-4 hours away. But there is a huge, because of Harry Potter and Harry Potter being shot there and written there, Rowling did write it there. There's also a lot of there's some bars that are like secret potion, magic bars, and one or two things like that. But I'm not a big person.
What would you do in Edinburgh? Because the weather's pretty
shit.
Exactly. I saw your stories every day complaining about the weather while you were there.
Yeah.
So what would you do in your free time
became my Instagram account became like a weather forecast. And I'm so used to seeing the sun, being a Bombay girl, that it was really hard.
But you also see the rains in Bombay, don't we?
Yeah. And this year it's just been 5 or 6 months of rain.
Stop it now, God. Rain gods.
But so I was studying most of the time, to be honest. I didn't have too much free time, but it was really nice to be able to. I really enjoyed my cohort, and it was a small group of just 35 or 36 of us, people from all around the world. We had someone from Palestine as well, Syria, Saudi Arabia. So it was just so multi-cultural that it was amazing to be able to talk to different people, experience culture differently. What is mental health like, say, in Indonesia versus India versus America? These are all things that we
discussed. Is there a difference though?
Yeah, because culture, that's why it's global mental health and society, is that culture does impact the way you address well-being and mental health,
Interesting.
and the way you view it. So America's facing a problem where there's over-medicalization, where people it's just being, you're handed out drugs and Prozac like
oh my gosh,
candy. So there's too much emphasis on the biomedical and that aspect of it. So they're trying to now move away from this over-medicalization. And then in India,
Going into natural healing.
or making it more holistic, where it's not just
Right.
about getting on Prozac, and in India we have issues with stigma and awareness, where people think that, oh, mental health means that, there's nothing wrong with me, I don't need to go to a therapist. Or why do you go to a therapist, like bimar ho? No, mental
Yeah.
health and well-being and mental illness are two separate things.
It's also like these aunties who meet you in the gym and who go like, आप क्यों workout कर रही हो? आप तो इतनी slim हो. Because I want to maintain myself.
You have hit the nail on
That is
the head.
exactly what it is with mental health. Why do you go to a therapist? It's somebody who's keeping you on check.
Yeah.
And I've always said this, that see, you always have friends and family and people who support you, but
Yeah.
they come from their experience.
You're so right.
Because they don't know any better. They come from their experience. A mental health professional is somebody who's studied it, who has certain, tools to help you with. So I think ideally it should not be a stigma. And in fact, it's worse for people who are not taking the help that they need
Yeah.
and still moving around in society.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Because then they give us pain.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. But Amrita, it's so beautiful that, you're trying to give back to society, and it's so wonderful to see you, take that step forward. But what about
Thank you.
yourself?
What about myself?
What about your own personal life? Like, I'm talking about self-love, I'm talking about you're giving love to the world, but what are you doing to give yourself that love as well?
So this, the whole decision to step away and do this master's was an act of self-love, where I didn't look at what would it have been better if I stayed here for my work. Definitely, because I had a release IC814, and at that time I was in Edinburgh while they were promoting here. So, and that is a call that I took.
Yeah.
But what was this? It was self-love.
It was self-love.
And I wasn't even studying when IC814 released. Had just finished, submitted my dissertation, but the Edinburgh festival was on. And I was
There's
like,
a festival?
no. Yes, there's
Please
a
enlighten
festival
me, sir.
where you have, artists from all over the world. It's amazing in all of August. Okay, it's 25 days in August where they have comedians, magicians, theatre performers, dance, physical theatre. Hundreds of artists come in, and I can't even tell you the number of shows that are on. And it's such an enriching experience. The city just comes alive.
Yeah.
To go and watch these shows from all over the world.
Sounds so fun. I really need to visit soon. So now,
that was coming back to self-love.
Yeah.
That was a big act of self-love.
That
to say,
was.
what do I need? What will make me feel good? What will make my life more enriching in the future? So things like that, and of course on an everyday basis, it's about going to the gym, taking time out to breathe, meditate, eat food that's good for you, meet people that are good for you, be around people that are good for you.
Yeah.
So this idea to be like, I'm going to step away from the business. I'm not going to stop acting. I'm still acting. But I'm going to do something that feeds me.
feeds your soul.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also the thing is that, I understand this whole self journey that happens with people, like, in a certain age and a certain time. But there's also so many other things I feel that, we as women especially go through physically. There's this transformational thing that happens in our body, around this time, like especially when you're 30. Since the show is 30 and Thriving, I want to emphasize on the fact that, especially when you're 30s, we are told to live life a certain way. We are told to कि अभी तो आप 20s में नहीं हो, अभी आप 30s में हो, अभी you should do this and you should do that. And there's so much noise from society. A girl who's not married in the 30s means too late to get married. A girl who's not had a child is like an incomplete woman. I'm not saying with everyone, but there are still parts of our society that feel that way. How do you say, because I know you personally, Amrita, and I feel like, you're somebody who's so confident in her skin and who has so much autonomy for her body and her choices in life. I feel like you're the right person to talk about this and give some advice to all the people out there.
So I can only speak from my experience, and everyone has different experiences and everyone has different priorities. And and it's for those who want to have a family and want to get married and want to have babies, that's amazing. You
Yeah.
should. And it's very hard work. Let me just say that
I'm
having
sure. Yeah. It's
kids is, I see my friends who have kids, and it is a lot of work that they put
Yeah.
in, and it requires a lot of selflessness.
It does need a lot of
because you
selflessness,
really
yes.
need to put aside your life and priorities and make the family that priority. And for those who do it, amazing.
Yeah.
But there are also women who say, don't feel the need to get married or have children.
Yeah.
And that's not, people think that, okay, I'm single, so hence I don't have kids. It's a choice that I made. Even if I was with a partner and I had a partner, I have never really wanted to have children.
And that's absolutely fine.
And it's absolutely fine.
Absolutely fine. There's nothing that's wrong in your life.
Yeah. And
You
you're
know?
made to, because society tells you that, motherhood is the most beautiful experience. And it is. I'm 100% sure it is. I've seen with all my friends, and I am missing out on that. But it's not a priority for me,
Yeah, the thing is that firstly, I think marriage and all of that is just labels given by the
Yeah.
society. It's the relationship that you
Yeah.
authentically share with a person. I
Yeah.
feel that's my core belief, And if you want to have a child, you don't really need to get married to have a child. You can have it with your partner as well. But I feel that, you've achieved so much in your life, and then like suddenly someone will be like, but now what about motherhood?
Yeah.
That question is really triggering for a woman because, you feel like it haunts a woman more than a man
Yeah,
in most
for sure.
cases. Yeah, and I'm glad you said this. It's a personal choice, and in order to go through motherhood, you don't really need to have a child yourself.
Yeah.
You can feel the instinctive motherly love towards an adopted child. You can feel it towards a pet baby. You can feel it. I know a lot of people will have stigma calling, how can a dog be a child? But yes, my cats are my babies. I
And
hold
my
them
dog is my
and I
son.
feed them and I take care of them like they are my children. So I feel like what you're experiencing is motherhood. So it's not like you're not experiencing motherhood. It's just that you're not experiencing motherhood in the traditional manner.
Oh, yeah, that's
You're
so
still a
well
mother.
put.
My dog passed away recently, and I was heartbroken. And he lived a full life till 15th. And when he passed away, and I was also going through this phase in my life where, I'm still not married. I don't have kids. And I was thinking, they were like, you are a mother. You had Bruno. And I'm like, yeah, man, I love Bruno so much. I call him my son. Why can't I think of this in my head that, I am a mother? It's just that I probably not birthed a child, but I feel that love towards a being, towards a soul. And I feel I'm expressing and I'm feeling motherhood through that. So I feel that's what it is. But coming to, your experiences that you shared with me earlier, I would love you to talk about it. You went through a process of egg freezing as well.
Yes.
Since you're somebody, who's so sure of not having children, why would you even take that step?
Because, when the biological clock, unfortunately, is real.
It is real. Unfortunately.
You may not be in a space where you are ready or want to have kids, but it is real, the biological clock, and your ovaries and your fertility rate does go down drastically post 30. I don't know what the details of it are, the technical details, but
35 actually, but yeah.
so it does, your fertility rate goes down. So if you want to have children, you do need to pay attention to, okay, how old am I? How fertile are my eggs? All of that. And then everyone around you, because the narrative is that you get married and you have children, and most people want that narrative. And there's absolutely, again, I'm saying there's nothing wrong with wanting
Absolutely
that. It's
not.
amazing.
Yeah, it's a personal
But the
choice.
problem comes in is when people question you not wanting to follow the traditional
Right.
narrative. Does anybody really, when people say, oh, I want to have babies, do they say, are you sure you want to have bachche, you want kids?
It's a
Are you
very
sure?
valid question.
It's a valid
though.
question. It's a lifelong commitment. But if you say, I don't want to have kids, which is what I've said growing up, then it's like, are you sure? Rethink it because you probably will,
At
when
some
you
point of
turn
time.
40, then if you want kids, then you won't have, you won't be able to because you won't be fertile enough, and then you'll regret it. So there's this whole thing where society, and they're coming from a good place where they actually
Yeah.
believe that your life is incomplete and you will at some point suddenly wake up at whether it's 36, 37 or 40 and say, oh no, I want babies. And then you can't have babies. So
Yeah.
there's, whether you go to a gynac and they say, oh, okay, you're 35 plus, so then you should freeze your eggs. And there's all this pressure coming in. And then it plays on your insecurity of, you start questioning yourself. And that's what happened with me, where I got scared that what if I regret it? What if
It was
I
that
actually,
fear that was instilled in
and
your
then
mind.
what happens? And then I'll really feel bad. And there's nothing wrong with freezing your eggs as well. But the thing is that I went through that process. I froze my eggs. And
Was the process difficult?
the process, I found it difficult. Everyone has a different experience, just as every woman has like a different experience with her period.
Yeah.
For some it's very painful. For some, the mood swings are very bad. So it's not an easy process. Really, it's not. And you have to put your body through a lot when it comes to injecting those hormones physically, emotionally.
Yeah.
And then it's not that, okay, once you've frozen your eggs, I'm definitely going to have babies. The whole
Yes.
process of IVF is very hard.
Yes.
And there's no guarantee
There's
that
no
once you've
guarantee.
frozen your eggs, you'll definitely have a baby. No.
That's true.
It's very complicated, and I know that you're going to get a gynac on board who's going to discuss.
I love it that you're giving out like trade secrets.
shit. You can cut that out. You can cut that out.
No. We'll keep everything. But the thing is that, yes, we are doing another episode and on details with an expert.
Yeah.
But I totally feel you,
Yeah, and then when I froze my eggs, I finished and I'm like, I'm not sure why I did that because I still don't want kids. And it's been...
But do you regret it, or do you think it's okay that I've done it and I've kept it now? It's in the back of my head.
Yeah.
Maybe my mind will change because minds do change.
I don't think my mind will change,
Okay.
But at least I have that assurance. So I feel it's also a very expensive process. So it's
Yes,
not
it
something,
is.
it's a privilege to be able to do it. And I was very aware of that privilege and I took advantage of it in the sense that, okay, if I do change my mind later, I have this. But the truth is that the reason I did it was societal pressure, was the whole thing of, but you'll regret it. But when you turn 40, you will want to, trust me, and then you won't be able to. So one thing that I do want to say, because I don't want to sound like I'm, you can only speak from your perspective, but it's not that, you can only, if once you choose to become a mother, you can't work. Of course you can work. And there are women who are, if you look at Kareena Kapoor, you look at Alia, I'm just talking about acting. There are people in various roles
Fields,
that are managing to do it all, but it's very hard and we need to stop glorifying it.
There are pregnant women who go to jobs.
Yeah.
Till there, I don't know which semester,
month,
but
or a
I
few
don't know
days.
why it's so different for actresses, yeah.
No, because
I just-
physically, when you're pregnant, you can't, unless
For the
role
physical
is
reasons, yeah.
But I'm just saying that it's society puts these labels on where you can be one thing or the other, or then they have this notion of what the narrative is, that you get married by 30 or younger, and you have kids and you have a full family and a unit by 40, and then there are very few who perhaps there aren't too many people who don't follow that narrative, because that's the most common narrative around the world. When you don't follow that narrative, people do question your decisions, or then they think, oh, perhaps she's not had kids because she's single, Perhaps she's not married because she didn't find anybody. No, they could be active choices that
Also,
you're making
the
as an
most common
individual.
thing is a lot of people think there's something physically wrong with you. That's
you
why
don't
you can't
choose to
have kids.
have-
They don't understand that, no, there's absolutely nothing physically
That
wrong with
there
people.
are
I just don't
couples
want to.
who can have kids and choose
we
not
have
to.
so many married friend couples who
Yeah.
are like happily married, but they just don't want to have kids.
Yeah, and thank God for them.
So you know what? We keep it open. Whoever wants to have children, please have children. Whoever doesn't want to have children, don't have children. Because that's what the beauty of life is. We all, as human beings, have choices in our lives, and don't let anybody else tell you any other way. That's what is called thriving.
Yeah.
Like 30 and thriving.
And it's not that I'm saying that, I don't like children, they're very cute, they're very sweet, and I've seen the joy that they
I love
bring.
children, but I like other people's children.
Yes, but the amount of work that you have to put in to
It
bring
is hard
up,
work.
and the sacrifices you have to make, and at the end of the day, the husband can't breastfeed.
Yeah.
It's you that has to go through that process. It's your body that goes through the process. You have to deal with postpartum. You have
And
to
we
deal
need to
with
stop having other people make decisions for your body.
yeah.
Whether it's banning abortions, whether it's,
that's a whole different, yeah.
stop having men, women, anybody else making choices for your body.
Yeah.
It's your body, your choice.
Yeah. But I do want to say, having said that I don't want to glorify this thing of, it's wonderful being an independent woman. And I am so grateful that the choices I make are my choices and not driven by the moment you have a partner, you have kids, you have those factors to consider. You have to take those choices as a unit. So I'm very grateful for this independence, If I want to pick up and travel tomorrow and leave, I can do that. I don't have to think about it,
Absolutely.
It's just my life that I am responsible for, and I live by my values, and I'm very grateful for it. But I do want to say that don't just, because people look at it and I don't want to glorify I don't know if glorifying is the right word, but everything comes with its pros and cons.
Yeah, but I think that's what this episode is all about. It's cutting out the noise. And I feel that, if there's something that you resonate with it personally, just stick to your gut. I don't think you're influencing people the wrong way. I feel like anybody who has the sensibility to understand this will. I feel you. I totally understand you, and I know where you're coming from.
What I'm saying is that I do want to say that it's important. I think people should also know that there are pros and cons. There are pros to being married.
Everything. Yeah.
It's great to have, if you're in a happy marriage or you have a partner and companionship. It's not that there are times where I don't miss companionship or I wouldn't want that. I'm not saying that, I just want to...
So what are the cons?
I wouldn't say cons as such, but the thing is that when in anything in life, when you take the road less taken or the path less taken, you choose to do something different from what everyone at your age is doing, which is a lot of my friends, most of them have partners, they're married, a lot of them have children. They have their units, that's their family. They have their...
I know what you mean.
They have their anchored existence. There's a lot of love that I see it in the happy families. It's really lovely. Whereas when you are completely single, it's just you. So there, like I said, there are pros and cons to everything, and when you choose to do something that's very different from what everybody else is doing, it can be lonely.
Do you feel lonely at times?
At times, yeah. I do, because a lot of my friends, like I said, they're married, they have kids. There's much less time that they have available on their hands to spend with you. When you are single, you have a lot of independence and your priorities are different. I won't be able to understand their life, because I've not been in their shoes.
So what
and vice versa.
Yeah,
so I do find that, I do seek out people who are single as well, because you're just, the way you live your life is different.
Single people need single friends, because it gets very difficult, when I have most of my friends who are either married or have kids.
Yeah.
And it's so difficult for them to take time out and meet me.
Yeah.
Sometimes because they have to wait for the availability of their partners or their children and their time schedule.
Yeah.
Whereas I'm here on my own time, So I do completely understand that. And I do agree, sometimes loneliness is like a byproduct of some of these decisions that we make in our life. And sometimes loneliness can feel like a void. But is marriage and children the only way to fill the void? Or do you think there's other ways of filling the void too? Because you know what?
Yeah.
As single people, we can do a lot of things that they can't. And I know a lot of these married people with kids who are just so jealous of my life right now, because they're like, dude, I wish we could do that, but we just can't anymore. So there is a pro and con there.
Absolutely. I'm saying that there are lots of pros too, and I thoroughly enjoy my life. But yes, it can be lonely, because everyone romanticizes single travel, solo travel, which is nice. But when you constantly are traveling solo, it gets lonely.
It does.
Your friends have to look at, my kids are in school, we haven't got their holiday, we finished our also as a freelance an individual who acts and is a freelance consultant in the mental health space. I have a lot of free time. I don't have fixed job where I have fixed off, and it's like, no, all our leave is over. So solo travel is great, but it can also be lonely. I would at sometimes want to have
absolutely. I'm not going to take
partner
away.
I can pick up with and celebrate, or or be like, oh, it's my birthday, come on, let's go,
Yeah. So it does have its pros and cons. But I remember this incident. I don't know if you remember or not. We were at a bar in Bandra. And there was, I'm not going to take names here, but there was a common friend, a couple's husband who was there, and he was dying to party.
Yes!
But he had to go home because his wife was waiting for him at home. And both of us were like, chal, go home.
Are you going to get in trouble for staying?
No, we're not. But the thing is that, we were like, listen, this is the best part about being single.
Yes.
We have nobody waiting for us at home. We can party till whatever time we want. But this guy who's dying to be here, usko ghar jana hai apne बीवी के पास. So I feel like there are some moments that we should actually take lightly and enjoy about being single. But yes, of course, loneliness is something, that a lot of millennials, I would say, a lot of 30-year-olds out there are experiencing, but that's a chat for another time. But thank you, Amrita. Thank you.
Wait. I do want to say that, and
love this episode.
Loneliness is also, it's not just single people versus married people. Married people can be very lonely as well, when their husbands are traveling, or when their kids fly the nest and then suddenly they're faced with an existence where they're like, oh, I've looked after people my whole life, now what do I do? So it's not that loneliness and being single are linked. You can be in a marriage and a relationship and be extremely lonely and isolated. But it's also an epidemic of our times,
of our
where we all
generation.
live such busy lives. We live in a city like Bombay, which never sleeps, and everyone's on the run and everyone's hustling. And then you go back to your apartments, and human beings are social beings. We thrive in community. Yes, there are some introverts, but I'm saying that it's an issue of our times where you can be married, you can be living in a joint family with 10 people. Nobody understands you, or you don't have anyone to talk to. So it's not that being single means being lonely. Because I've realized that I can find community in other ways. I can reach out and make friends who have similar priorities or lives like mine.
True.
So it's not that it's, single means lonely or you don't have a unit. You can be in a family setup also and be very lonely.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you gave an example of Bombay city because, I was born in Calcutta and I came to Bombay. And the key difference between the two cities is in Calcutta, everybody's bothered about what's happening in your house.
But that's annoying.
And in Bombay, no one really cares, but it also gets lonely.
It does,
It's a byproduct of nobody cares of what's going on in your house, but they also don't care what's going on in your life.
And you could have, I've grown up here. I have so many wonderful, wonderful friends, and I'm so grateful. Every part of the city, I know somebody. But it's hard with, it takes 2 hours sometimes to commute from one place to another. You have work, you have kids. It is hard. And then the other thing is when you see people, so many times I go to a restaurant and 2 people sitting in front of each other and they're on their phones. So this loneliness, you can even be sitting with somebody and feel lonely. Whereas I could be sitting alone and be really happy, fully engaged with my book and my coffee. And I mean, it's just, you can't label it.
Absolutely. I completely agree with you, because I feel like what we are all craving for is that connection.
Yes.
I think that connection is lacking sometimes, even when you have a partner but not a companion. I think that's the key difference. So I feel like, we are all looking for that connection, and that can happen in many different ways.
And you're right. And it's in my friendships that I have found that fulfillment.
Girl friendships, boy friendships.
Both. But the girl friendships
is a little special, no?
Yeah. And my parents are my unit, but it's hard to see them aging.
I know.
That's very hard because they are my unit.
The thing is that we don't realize that while we are growing older, our parents are growing older too.
Yeah, and it is very, very hard to see your parents who have looked after. I mean, luckily, I have wonderful parents who I'm very grateful for. But to see them aging is very hard. And that's also a grief. That's also grieving, right? Seeing that. So that's something that does come with getting older. And that I do find challenging emotionally.
I think that is. And on that emotional note, Amrita, thank you so much for coming on this show. And thank you so much for being so raw and so honest with your experiences in life. I had a great time listening to this conversation, to be very honest. And I want to ask you one last question.
Okay.
What is thriving for you? What does thriving mean to you?
Thriving for me. So, firstly, I want to say that it's very hard to be thriving constantly. And I don't think personally that is possible, because life is such that we all have ups and downs, and you go up and down with it. So if you're in a very hard situation, it would be strange if you say you're thriving, because there is such a thing as toxic positivity. But thriving also means that in that situation, in that hard situation, how are you dealing with it? What are you doing for yourself to because life is going to keep throwing things at you. But how do you maintain your sense of balance? Where do you find your anchor? Where do you find, I read something recently on Instagram, which was amazing, that the people who are happiest, who are always in a good mood, and that is important. But yes, you have to understand that you cannot constantly be thriving. But flourishing and thriving to me means that in the situation that I have, what's available, what's possible, I'm able to do things that I find fulfilling, that I find engaging, that I feel make me happy, whatever it is. And that differs for everybody. And parts of my life, whether it's friends, your family, social obligations, or your professional, all of those things, I feel like there's a little water being poured into all of it, so that for me is thriving.
That's really, really beautifully put. And such an interesting perspective to thriving. So, Amrita, we have a small little gift for you. This is from Au Naturel. And I swear by these products. They are so amazing for the skin. They are all organic and natural. And I hope you enjoy it.
Thank you. I love anything organic. I'm a sucker for natural products.
Thank you so much.